All right. Hello, everybody. So today we're going to be finally reviewing the math packet, but only the first half. Okay. And I'm just going to be saying page 1, 2, and so on. So I know the pages in the math packet have different pages, so we're just going to go by 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and so on. So the first one, we start off just the basics, adding integers. Okay, so I'm just going to go over some of the problems in each section because there's way too many to do every single one. But what I want is for you to work on them, and you should have been done by now, at least with everything that you can. And whatever you don't understand, I need you to ask me. Okay, so you can ask me through Schoology, you can email me. Okay, I have sent you all an email, but just in case you don't know, okay, my email is r dot and then it's Contreras 3 at lausd.net. Okay, so that's another way that you can contact me with questions. Okay, so let's start off. So the good thing about making a video is that you can pause it, and review what I'm writing before I erase it. Okay, so let's start off with the first one. The first one, I'm gonna go actually number 1, which is -5 plus -2. Okay, so when you have two negatives but you're adding them, you keep the sign. Okay, so this is just -7, right? You're just adding the signs. You're not multiplying or dividing, right? Another way is that you can look at a number line, right? -5. You can put it anywhere, right? And then you're adding a -2, right? So -2 is to the left, right? So this is gonna be -6, and this is -7, right? So you add -2, so you get a -7, right? If you would have just added 2, just a regular +2, then you go to the right, and you would have -3. But in this case, just -7. Okay. Next one I want to do is number 3. We have -7 plus 10 equals 3. So again, I just wrote down the answer here, right? So it's 3. So how do you get 3? We have a -7 plus a 10. The 10 is a bigger number, okay? So you're gonna keep that sign, right? You're adding, or you can subtract, right? You can flip them over if you want, right? You can have 10 minus 7, right? 10 minus 7 is 3, right? I know that this is easier for all of you, right? When you just see 10 minus 7, oh, that's 3, right? So this is the same thing. You're just flipping them over, right? Again, 10 is a bigger number, a bigger absolute value, so you keep the sign. Okay. So those are the first ones I want to go over. Okay, and again, if you have questions, then pause the video, right, and just look at what I'm writing. This is a nice thing, right? So next one I want to go over is number 8. So we have 100 plus a -25. Okay, again, this just becomes -25, right? A positive and a negative is a negative, right? So 100 minus 25, right? Which is just 75, right? You can think of this as pennies, right? 100 pennies minus 25, right? $1 minus a quarter, right? That's 75. Okay. The next one, 11. So we have -42 plus 36 plus -36. Okay. So this one's easy, right? A positive, opposites add to 0. Remember that? Opposites add to 0. So those just go away. So you're just left with -42. There you go. And then I want to go over the one of the word problems. So it says a hawk is in a tree, right? That's my tree. 100 feet above the ground, right? So this is where the hawk is, and this is 100 feet in the air, right? it flies down to the ground. Okay, so how would you write that, right? So it flies down to the ground. So you have 100 plus minus 100, right? So you go up 100 and then you go down 100, right? Or just 100 minus 100, so that's 0. Okay. So that's the first page. Those are the problems I wanted to go over. The rest of them are very similar, right? So I'm just trying to do as many problems, but different types of problems, just so that you're able to do the rest. Okay. So page 2. Now we're subtracting. We're subtracting integers. So number 1, we just have 7 minus 9. Okay. So again, out of these two numbers, which one is the bigger number, right? It's 9. So we're going to use that sign. Okay. So 7 minus 9. So this is just negative 2. Okay. If this was the other way, right? Let's say negative 7 plus 9. We would still use a sign, but it's a positive, right? So it's just 2. Okay. Again, you can use a number line too if you want to check your work, right? So we're starting at 7. And then you're going back 9, right? So it's 7. So you can go 7, right? You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we have a 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and then negative 1, and then negative 2, right? So you go back 9. So you start at 7, and then you go back 9, okay? And you land at negative 2. So that's how you do that one. Okay, so the next one, we are at number 2. 20 minus negative 6. Okay, so this one is, it has these two negatives, right? 2 negatives equals a positive, right? So we have 20 plus 6. Okay, so this is just 26, right? Number 5 on this page, we have a negative 7 minus 8 equals, again, these are two negatives, and you're basically just adding them, right? So you have a negative 7 plus a negative 8, right? So you're going to keep the sign, you're just adding them together. So it's a negative, and then whatever 7 and 8 is, which is 15. Okay, remember the signs go away when you're multiplying or you're dividing. When you're adding or subtracting, the sign, you keep the sign, right? In this case, we have a negative and a negative, so that became a positive, because you're multiplying here. Just the signs, right? This is a subtraction. So you have 20 minus negative 6, or 20 plus 6. In this case, you don't have any double negatives here or double negatives here, so they just remain negative. Okay, let's do number 13. So in this section, you're plugging in. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that you're giving a value for a variable, and you're plugging that the number into the equation. Okay, so in this section, you were given m equals negative 2, right? N is 10, and then p is 5. So I just went over a couple of these because the rest are basically the same again. Okay, so number 13 is m minus 6, right? So you plug in, right, this value into the equation. So now you have a negative 2 minus 6, and we go back again to what we're doing, right? Negative 2, negative 6 is negative 8, right? You keep the sign. The next one I want to go over is 14. So you have 9 minus n. Okay, so n is 10, so you plug 10 into the equation. Okay, so you have 9 minus 10, right? Don't get rid of the negative sign. Leave that sign alone. You're just plugging in that value into n. Okay, so this is just -1. Okay, you have this number is bigger, so you're going to keep this sign. Okay, so that's just -1. And the other one I want to do is 17. Okay, so we have 17, we have m minus n. So now we have two variables. So now we have, first is m, so that's just -2, right? And for n, again, you leave the sign alone, and then you plug in 10, right? So it's just -2 minus 10, so it's just -12. Okay. So again, pretty simple. What you're learning here is you're given a value for a variable, and you're plugging in that value into the equation. But again, don't mess the signs up. Don't touch them until you plug them in, and then you figure out, does the sign change or does it stay the same, right? So if, for example, let's say this was -10, so this would have been minus -10, which then becomes positive, right? But this was just a positive 10, so this sign doesn't change, so it's just a negative. Okay, so that was it for page 2. All right, let's see here. So now we're doing page 3. So page 3, we're multiplying now. Okay, and all of this should just be review. We've done all of this already, so this should just be review. But again, we haven't met for a while now, so it's hard to keep all this material. But again, reviewing is good, and it's good that you have this packet with you. You have the hard copies with you, so you have a lot of examples to study and to learn from. Okay, so don't ever get rid of these packets because they're very valuable. You have a lot of stuff here that you're always going to use for the rest of whenever you're taking math classes, as a student. You're always going to be using these very simple rules, right? Subtracting, adding, multiplying, right? That sounds very easy, right? But then when you're messing in with the negative numbers, if you miss one negative sign, then that's it. It's wrong, right? So you always have to make sure that you practice, and then you don't lose sight of those signs, so you don't miss one or forget one or add an extra one, right? So page 3, we're multiplying. So we have -5, this is number 1, -5 parentheses 8, or just times 8, right? So -5 times 8, that's just -40, right? Negative times a negative is a positive, right? But we only have one negative, so we keep the negative. Okay. The next one I want to go over is number 5. That's -12 parentheses -12, or times 12. Now a negative times a negative is a positive, and so now we have 144, right? Positive. The next one is 6. We have an exponent on this one. We have -8 squared. Okay, this just means -8 times -8, right? So again, 2 negatives equals a positive. So this is just 8 times 8 basically, and so this is just 64. Okay, so number 10, we have 5. We have 3 numbers now. 5 times -4 times 5. Okay, so because you're just multiplying, you can just go from left to right, right? You don't have to worry about anything else. So this is just, so 5 and -4 is -20, right? And then you're left with the 5. And then -20 times 5 is -100. So again, we only have one negative sign, so the answer is negative. Okay, very important. All right, so there's just one more I want to go over on this page. And again, you should be able to do the rest after I go over all of these examples, because the rest is just similar, right? So we have 17. I want to go over this one. So that is -2, and then we have a 5 squared. Aha! So this could get trickier, right? But so don't ever forget PEMDAS, right? Parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. Okay, so here we have We do have parentheses, but again, parentheses means like if you have something inside of parentheses, right? So if we had like, let's say 5 plus 2 squared, so then you add 5 plus 2 and then you square it, which is the exponent. So we don't have to do anything inside the parentheses, so we go to the exponent. So 5 squared, right? That is the same thing as just 5 times 5, right? So that's just 25. So we have negative 2 times 25. Okay, and then now you can multiply, right? So we have negative 2 times 25, that's just negative 50. Okay, so that's it for page 3. All right, so let's go to page 4. So page 4, now we're dividing, okay? So dividing always gets fun, you know, sometimes you have to do long division. So you have negative 12 divided by 4. Okay, so again, remember the rules of the negative sign, those also apply to division. So multiplication and division is the same thing. 2 negatives equals a positive, 1 negative equals a negative. Okay, so we have 1 negative, so we already know the answer is negative. Okay, and then now you just divide in 12 by 4, and that's just 3. Okay. Next problem I want to go over is number 6. So we have a negative 80 divided by a negative 20. Okay, so again, right off the bat, we know that this is a positive answer. Okay, these two negatives cancel. And now we have 2 zeros here. So remember, when you're dividing and you have a 0 on the top and a 0 on the bottom, in terms of like a number ending in a 0, you can just get rid of them. Okay, so this is just 8 divided by 2, and that's just 4. Okay, next one is 7. So we have 350 divided by negative 25. So again, we know the answer is negative. Just one negative sign, the answer is negative. Okay, so there's different ways you can do this. You can use mental math, right? Because you have a 25. So again, you can think of this as quarters, you know. So you have 350 divided by 25. So if you split this up into, let's say, hundreds and then a 50, right? 1, 2, 350, right? So 25 into 100 is 4, 4, 4, and 2. Okay? And you add these together, you have 4, 4, that's 8, plus 4 is 12, plus 2, that's 14. So you can have, just write 14. And again, the answer is negative, right? That's one way to do it. Or you can do long division, right? So we have 350 divided by 25, okay? So 25 into 35 is just 1. So that's 25 times 1 is 25. So 35 minus 25 is 10. You drop the 0. 25 into 100 is 4. And that evens out, so that's 0. So the answer again is 14. So a couple ways you can do this, right? I always try and do mental math as much as I can so I can make everything just a lot easier. But at the same time, if you're not comfortable with that, always write everything out, okay? A lot of these problems are always going to be pretty simple, and the numbers eventually are going to, most of the time, be even. So you'll know that if you do long division, it's not going to be anything like complicated with, decimals and a bunch of other numbers, okay? So that was number 7. Let's do 10. And again, we're still on page 4. Okay, so number 10, we have negative 256 divided by 16. So this one, mental math is probably not the fastest unless you already know some tricks, right? So again, the easiest way to do this, long division. And we also know that the answer is negative. There's only one negative sign, so the answer is negative. So we have 256 divided by 16. So again, 16 into 25, that's 1. So that's 1 times 16, that's 16. 25 minus 16, that's 9. You drop down to 6. 16 into 96, that's 6. Okay, right? 6 times 16 is 96. And that's 0, right? So if you multiply 16 times 6, right, that's 36. 3, 6 times 1 is 6, plus 3 is 9. Okay, so that goes in evenly. So this is just negative 16. Don't forget about the negative sign. Okay, now the next section, on that page, again, you're given values, right? So you're given a variable, and D is negative 24. You're given E, which is negative 4. And then F is just 8. Okay, so you're given values, and again, you're plugging them in, and then you're dividing. Okay, so first one I want to go over is 14, which is D divided by E. Okay, so you get the values for those variables, and once again, you divide. Okay, so we have negative 24 divided by a negative 4. Okay, so we have two negatives, so we already know the answer is positive. Okay, and then 24 divided by 4, that's just 6, right? That should be pretty easy. Number 17, we have negative D over an E. Okay, so when you're plugging in, again, don't mess with the sign until you plug in the number. Okay, so we have a negative D. D is negative 24, right? And the bottom we have E, which is negative 4. Okay, so again, let's divide the top, distribute the negative sign. So on the top, you're going to be left over with just a 24, right? Two negatives equals a positive. And the bottom, we didn't touch, so that's just negative 4. And now we have just 24 divided by negative 4, so that's just negative 6, right? One negative sign, and so the answer is negative. So that's that. Okay, the next one I want to go over is number 20. So again, you can go back in the video and pause this, because I'm just going to go over this and, without pausing too much, because, it's a video, so it doesn't matter. Okay, so we have number 20. So for number 20, we have D minus E over 5 equals negative 24, right? You plug in D, which is negative 24, and then you have minus, so don't touch that negative sign just yet. And then we have a E, which is negative 4, right? And the bottom, we just have a 5. We're not doing anything with that just yet. Okay, so we have two negatives here, so that becomes a positive, so that's negative 24 plus 4. And then we have a 5. Negative 24 plus 4 is just negative 20 divided by 5, and this is just negative 4. Okay, so that is page 4. So I'm going to go over two more pages, so page 5 and 6, and then we'll stop there for today. Let me erase this. The other sections have to do with proportions and some word problems, so we'll go over that next week. Okay, so page 5. Page 5 is just equations and variables. Okay, so I'm going to go over 5 of them. There's 3 with fractions, which I know, a lot of you get scared of. But again, it's very easy. The same exact process. It's just a fraction, right? So we'll go over that in a bit. So the first one, I'm going to go over number 1, which is 4y plus 1 equals 13. Okay, so for this one, again, you always want to get the variable by itself. So the first step is you work with the constant. So you add the opposite, right? Or subtract it in this case. Negative 1. So we have 4y equals just 12, right? 13 minus 1 is 12. Divide by 4. So this is, 4 over 4 just becomes 1. So you're left with the y. And then this just becomes 3. Right? So y equals 3. So if you plug 3 into y, you're going to get 13, right? So 4 times 3 is 12, plus 1 is 13. Okay? So that's one way to check it. Next one, I want to go over number 3. It's negative 3 equals 5k, I think it is. Whatever it is, doesn't matter, it's a variable. Plus 7. Okay, so we have, in this case, we have the 7, which is a constant, so you add the opposite to both sides, right? So negative 3 minus 7 is negative 10. Okay, now we have 5k, right, because that goes away. Now we divide by 5 because we're trying to get the k by itself. So in this case, it's a negative 2 equals k, right? Negative 10 divided by 5 is negative 2. We have one negative sign. Okay, so those are the answers. Those are the first couple ones. Those are easy. Nothing complicated about those.